It's Mark Taylor here from Led Oncology. As you've noticed, we've started to do a lot more long-form interviews. This was after 6 years of following hundreds of patients and working with the top oncologists in the world, and after starting a Facebook group and knowing how the community of people trying to hack cancer are following Facebook to really work out what to do. I came to the conclusion that, for those that are doing well, there's a hell of a lot of subtlety involved, and simply trying to get bite-sized suggestions of treatments to do on Facebook is not the right way to go around it. And in this interview, there are so many subtleties that this person got right in an incredibly difficult case. So someone with stage 4 lung cancer with brain mets, 3 or 4 months left to live and a diagnosis, and now has been living a number of years cancer-free. A very alternative approach followed, but one with a lot of science behind it, an increasing amount of science behind it. And while Johnny believes there was a bit of luck involved, which I'm sure there is, a lot of circumstantial luck, for some reason, he made a lot of decisions that I see exceptional responders make. We've documented in our Hacking Cancer portal, so hackingcancer.health, the 10 guiding principles. And these are my findings for things that people do at a human level and a personal level, that accountability needs to be taken personally to get exceptional response. And from my experience, even getting 1 or 2 of these out of line tends to lead to less favorable results. And actually, I suggest everyone starts with trying to comprehend where they are on these. The vast majority are not going through this critical list to review their approach. In the conversation with Johnny, he brings up a lot of things that we talk about in the guiding principles with different wording. One is be able to kind of critically review what you do. There are a lot of people out there that are persuaded by what everyone's talking about and take popular opinion or opinion from their friends or their family, or even sometimes, and I hate to say this, from oncologists or naturopaths or integrative oncologists out there. And this can be a flaw because my observation is there are very few people out there that have an awareness of all the things you can do. Very much, a lot of the specialists out there are very narrow in what they do. And you can see from Johnny's experience, he brought in a wide range of modalities that he'd found, and a lot of it he'd brought in himself. A lot of therapy advice, meditation techniques, and seeing a very experienced oncologist in the private space that brought in a treatment that has a lot of clinical efficacy. And yet again, another patient that did a cancer vaccine. This is something I'm seeing coming up again and again and again. And given the side effect profile, given the doors it can open up into immunotherapy options down the line, in my opinion, for those that can access this, it's one of the key things that people need to do, but one of the things that people need to do early. A lot of people leave it right at the end, and you don't get the benefits. In about 50% of the cases, a lot of people do it so late, by the time the vaccine's produced, people have passed away. So this is something I'm trying to change in terms of a lot of people's behaviors, of course, only if you can afford it. But anyway, listen in. It's a great interview. We'll be doing more of these. If you're an integrative doctor who wants to talk about your approaches and your patients, or if you're a patient who's also had an exceptional response and turned around a very difficult case, we'd love to hear from you in an interview. Good morning, Johnny.
Morning, Mark. How are you?
Very, very good. So today we've got a very interesting story. We met in Germany, in Brunswick, at Unifontis Center. We were both undergoing diflunisal treatment. And I think we finished on the same day, right? We
did, and we went and had something to eat, or
and a bottle of wine to celebrate. Yeah, which was very uncancer treatment focused, but we were celebrating.
There was the eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we may die kind of an attitude going on. Yeah, and actually, that attitude is actually helpful.
I think as well. I think you can get too serious into the healing process, and then you can we're talking. I mean, I'm not drinking bottles of wine every day, but like once in a while to have a chat and enjoy yourselves and celebrate. I'm not advocating everyone goes out and starts drinking, but it was a nice
Yeah.
event that we bonded
Yes.
over. So,
Yeah.
and then we stayed in touch, and along the way. You kindly paid for a psyche session with me, and I'll talk about that later because there was a meaningful part of that was actually quite impactful in my life.
Yeah.
Um, and then,
And
but
most
the
importantly, we both didn't die. We were both
and we're both alive, which is very
yeah.
important.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about, because it's a long story, or it's got some sort of some adventure to it? Do you want to talk about like how you ended up at Dr. Drevs?
I will. I'm just going to shut a door. Sorry.
Yeah, no worries.
So now, yeah. So I got diagnosed in. I live in the west coast. I live in the west of Ireland. I got diagnosed in Limerick on the 21st of June, 2021, the longest day in the year, and it was a long day, that one. And I had a client in my business that invests in the racehorses, that he also invests in medical companies, and he told me about this. He had a year previously told me about this guy in Germany who the stats were off the charts. He had like a 70% success rate with cancer. He had a 40% success rate with people who had been told there wasn't any point treating them anywhere else. He had done kind of the stats on his company and on the studies that Drev had done.
Oh,
And
okay.
we'd been talking about that, and we said, let's, if I was thinking if my dad or somebody had gotten cancer, he's the guy to call. So a year or so later, I got this unexpected diagnosis. I was tired and I had a bit of a cough, but it was a real shock. And they were like, stage 4 aggressive lung cancer. How many children have you? Get your affairs together, and we'll keep you alive as long as we can. So I came out into the car park and I called my friend, booked up a thing with Drev, and went to Germany in about 3 days. I actually had a sale. I was selling horses in France, and then anyway, I was in Germany about 3 days after that.
So you went straight from diagnosis to Drevs.
I went straight from diagnosis. Yeah, I went to.
Oh wow.
I had the diagnosis, and there was appointments to come back, and I just never went back.
Oh wow, wow. So it's very interesting because I follow a lot of patients doing experimental treatments, and the one thing that's interesting for the majority, they only find out about this stuff until all options in standard medicine have run out, and it doesn't work so
Yeah,
well when you do that. But interestingly, a lot of the complete responses and the people who live a long time start early, and it's usually because they know someone who's been through it. That's the
yeah,
common factor for the majority. If you haven't have that contact, then you wouldn't know about it, right?
yeah. So yeah, like I should have prefaced my story with like probably the key factor in the success was luck, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
The key factor was luck. Like, I did this and I did that and I did whatever meditation and but like lots of people did that and died.
Yeah, yeah.
And I knew about Drev, and had done a lot of research on meditation. I was kind of into it, and I got tremendous support and had the money and resources and spare time to focus on my recovery.
Yeah, yeah, it's a good point.
And yeah, because I didn't have, like, some people had to go to work the next day.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
What I did, I had a business, and it suffered
Yeah,
considerably, but it was my business.
yeah,
You know what I mean? I didn't lose my job, and my kids were still able to eat. Like that was key. I was just lucky.
yeah,
It was
yeah,
good
yeah.
run
You
luck.
had you had all the things in place. It's kind of
Yeah,
funny. There's a lot of commonalities in people who do well. You knew about these treatments, early diagnosis. You had the resources to go somewhere, and the time. If you've got a
yeah,
family of 3 and a full-time job, and you're living in Chicago or whatever, to
Yeah.
drop everything and go over to Germany for a month or so is not so easy.
Yeah, and another thing that happened was so my friends did a GoFundMe for me, or suggested it, and I said no. I
Mm.
didn't want to. I didn't want to be looking for money. It was a pride thing, really.
Yeah.
I said no, and my friend Richard said, this is for your kids when you die. It's not for you." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So they went ahead with it, and like GoFundMe called us. We got investigated because like it filled up in about 4 days. They got like 250,000 or something like
Wow,
that.
wow.
So there was a huge response to it. So it's just sort of like, again, like it's just lucky. So I went to Germany. I did a Zoom call. I had planned to go to France. I had a sale on in France, and I did a Zoom call from there. And I ended up not coming home from France, just getting a train and then a flew to Frankfurt and went out to Drevs. And he went through the treatment program, and what he suggested, they did a set of blood tests, and so he made an assessment, had a treatment plan, and that was a Thursday. And I just said, he said, I remember him saying, because I'm an odds guy, I'm a numbers guy, and I said, "What are my chances?" He said about 25%. And people might see that as bad. I'm like 4 to 1.
Mm.
I've had a lot of 4 to 1 winners.
Yes, we should premise the crowd and the audience you're in the racing business, right? You're a moderately
Yeah.
famous horse racer, would you say? How do you define what you do?
I don't know if I'm not famous, but I buy and sell race horses.
Yeah, okay.
Globally kind of, but and it's a risky business, and the last couple of years my business has suffered, but I'm kind of back in the game now.
Okay.
So well, I got a light came on then. I said I just felt I had a chance.
Hmm.
It was like the previous diagnosis, like a week before in Limerick, was like, "You don't have a chance. We'll keep you alive as long as we can."
Yeah.
And
That's very important,
okay.
actually. It's been studied, the placebo effect and the nocebo effect. That the difference between you're going to die 100% from a guy with a very nice white coat and some qualifications, and someone saying, "No, you got 25%." I mean, it's a big psychological shift, right? It's
100%.
yeah,
Yeah. Like that was a big one. Like,
yeah,
um, and he was like, he wasn't like encouraged. It was just the numbers were there. You can, yeah, 25% you could do this. Like, and I was like, well, if I can't do it, I will do it. I'm of that mindset anyway. So I said, he wanted to start treatment the next day. Like, time isn't your friend in the, like use time. Like, the quicker you get on, because I was stage 4 aggressive. It wasn't an early diagnosis. I'd put it off for a long time. Kind of don't tend to go to doctors.
yeah,
I'm a fellow that almost never gets sick, and I don't. My mother was a doctor, so we didn't go. You could be dying, and you'd have to go to school.
yeah.
So I just ignored those things. So he wanted to start treatment the next day. It was Thursday, and I said, I was quite weak at that stage. So I said, I want to fly home. I have 4 kids. I wanted to, have a chat with people. We didn't tell all of them. I didn't tell them the maybe severeness of it, or that it was stage 4. And I had a parent who was, when I came home, I actually signed a non-resuscitate for my mother. So just wanted to do it because I didn't know if I was coming back, or what state I'd be in when I get back. So and when I came home, I did a mushroom treatment. I did a mushroom session. Okay, at 5 grams. It's called the hero's journey.
Magic mushroom, psilocybin for those.
Psilocybin.
Yeah.
And like, it was like, I wasn't the kind of person who did those. I was on the, it was interesting to me. I had read that studies in John Hopkins, that they did in John Hopkins, and it was interesting to me. And I, but now, like, sure, if they tell you you're going to die, like, I had nothing to lose.
Yeah.
So it's like, what's it going to do? Kill me? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
It's a good attitude. Yeah. There's nothing.
so I
Yeah,
said,
no
yeah. So
downside.
I kind of rolled the dice, and I did a hero's journey, which is 5 grams, and I and for anyone to do that, do it in a setting, do the research. Don't just like,
Yeah, yeah,
don't just
yeah. Yeah, very good.
like,
Yeah, very true.
you have to do them. I did them, I set off intentionally and did it the Saturday morning. And when I came out of it, I said to my wife, I'm not going to die. And so just trying to explain this, so that it kind of came, you're not going to die. You're not going to die. There wasn't anything more to it. You're not going to die. And so I don't like belief, positive thinking and belief, like positive thinking will get you killed in this situation. So belief implies doubt. You believe in God, or you believe in love, or you believe it's a good person. Like, it implies doubt. I don't believe I'm on a podcast with Mark now. I know I'm on a podcast. I don't believe the computer is right here. I didn't believe I wasn't going to. I kind of knew.
Oh, wow. Wow. Well, part
Different
knowing.
feeling.
Yeah. An insight. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, wow.
I don't know what
Perfect.
that, and I can't explain that. So, look, whether it was predicting the future or whether it just gave me this solid confidence and removed a huge amount of stress. I don't know. I
Can
don't
I
know
ask?
what
Yeah,
happened.
it's funny because our journeys are very similar. So I did 5.5 grams
Of course, you have to go a bit better, right?
on the Jamaican beach with it was the first international legal psilocybin center. Actually, that was the first thing I did. It's a very weird story my end because pre to diagnosis, I randomly went to a talk in New York by NYU professor who'd done a study on cancer patients with magic mushrooms. So I was there just so I knew the effects from that similar study to John Hopkins. So it was the first place I looked up. Yeah. So and it's interesting. I speak to a lot of patients, and quite a few get this. Sometimes they go to me, "Mark, you're going to think I'm mad," but I had this voice say something to me. It comes up a
Yeah,
lot, or an inner
yeah,
feeling.
it was. Yeah, so look, I'm not a woo-woo guy.
Yeah.
I don't rub crystals together. I'm from a family of doctors. Um, like, yeah, but that, like, it was like I came out like, you're not going to die.
Can I
Uh,
ask what happened on the journey? Did you go into a death scenario? Did you go through the fear of death? Did you have a lot of death topics coming up in the experience? Or
no,
no? Okay.
no, and I'll be honest, I have not got a great recollection of it.
Okay.
Like, that's the bit I took away from it. So it's 5 years ago almost now, and I just remember going kind of very deep past um past the normal cognitive stuff
Yeah, 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 yeah.
into like a deeper kind of a place. And
Yeah.
it was
A
like
mystical experience.
eh, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah. For lack of, but like there was
It's
no,
how it's
I didn't.
defined in the psychological studies, they correlate outcomes to do with the mystical experience. Typically,
Yeah,
actually, in fear of death experiences. So it alleviates the fear of death if you've had a mystical experience.
yeah. So yeah, it went to a very deep place, like beyond kind of matter. That's what it
Yeah,
felt
yeah,
like.
yeah.
Um, so that was Saturday. I went off to Drevs and started my treatment, and I had a session with a meeting with him, and I said, "This is just one thing I can't get um I can't get in. I couldn't get." I said, "What's the mental game?" Because we'd gone through the treatment. This is what we're going to do. I said, "What? What's the? I can't get my. I'm full of like I was a British and Irish university at college. I was British and Irish middleweight champion, and like I'm full of fight. I've got that thing in me, but I didn't even know that didn't seem like the thing to do. Like you're fighting your own body. How do I approach this? And he said, and this was also key. He said, because I knew he had treated 2,600 people. I'd seen the study and that they'd done at the time. And he said, people come to me, I can't do his accent. People come to me and they say, you know, doctor, whatever it takes, we have whatever, like you tell me what to do, I'll do just whatever it takes, you just tell me what to do and, you know, I'll do it. And he said, they're not the success group. He said, the success group are people who take responsibility for their own recovery.
Yeah.
And I'd say he was sorry he said that because I can be awkward anyway. But I wouldn't start the chemo because I was just so weak.
Yeah.
For the first about week or 10 days. And I had like 3 tablets, like an oral chemo. And so that was key. From that point on, I'm like, okay. So like it doesn't, like Drevs is excellent. There's lots of good oncologists in the place, but if you go into an oncologist, right, they have, you know, 200 to 500 patients. They have 3 kids, a wife, a golf game, a holiday in Marbella or something. Like, you're not in the top 1,000 things on their list. Really, any day.
Yeah, totally.
So like, and if if it goes wrong, they don't die, right? So it, like, the big thing is here, take 100% responsibility and captainage and steerage of your own recovery.
It's such a good point. I mean, that's what patient-led oncology, I can see it there, is all about. It's about putting the patient in charge with knowledge, with knowledge and knowledge, not just on the medicine, which is important. And I'm about to kind of show the diflunisal study because I think it's an important one, but also on the approaches, taking control. Because it's funny, I work with a few sets of patients, but those that just say yes to everyone around them don't do so well. They're not being refined. You have to be navigating. You have to be like, okay, what am I doing here? What's the right advice I need to take? You need to take ownership. Bit of
100%.
And the mental side of it.
You have to have agency over this, and so I get a lot of calls because, like, I had 3 times I was kind of offered palliative care, and because of the GoFundMe, it was very public.
Yeah.
And I had a Twitter following at the time, and it was so anyway. I used to do these videos, so kind of a lot of people in my little industry knew, and I get a lot of, anyone gets sick, or their father gets cancer, or someone gets cancer, I get a call, because Johnny knows how to beat it, kind of, which I don't, right? But that's, that impression is there somehow. So I get a lot of calls, and people, the knowledge is one thing, but some people can't step up.
Yeah.
You have to step up and take the wheel. And like the diagnosis traumatizes, kills some people.
Totally. Yeah.
I find.
It's that new environment, white coats.
Not everyone can do it.
Yeah, scanning machines and and the messaging. It's
Just that day in the office where someone tells you you're going to die.
Yeah.
That's good. Like, that's traumatic. That's a near-death experience.
Yeah, it is, and no one prepares you for it, and there's not really support around it. It's like, you're going to die. Bye. See you later for chemo.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's horrible.
And like the thing that killed, that is the wrong word. The thing that, like, no one in the room expected me to live. There was no one saying, we'll do this, we'll do so. Like,
yeah.
No, it's over now. That was the thing. That's why I never went back there.
Yeah.
So went to Drevs, did the diffusional, and I don't know if you want to say, like, I did the diffusional treatment, and I started a keto went on the keto diet, and just to explain a little bit about the keto. So we have, as humans, we can run on petrol or diesel, right?
Yeah,
we can run on glucose and glycogen, or which ATP for the cells, or ketones, ATP for the cells, so energy, both cognitive and physical. So cancer, we can live quite well, actually healthier on ketones, okay? And like all the ultra like 100K runners and a lot of the special forces are on ketones, are on keto diets, bodybuilders and stuff like that. But we can function really well on that. Cancer can't. Keto diet doesn't kill cancer, but on a keto diet, cancer is way less likely to kill you.
yeah, yeah.
So it doesn't. It will find it very hard to. It just isn't fed. Keto lives on glucose and glycogen, sugar and carb, and it won't grow or metastasize. And the medication will work somewhere between 2 and up to 15 times, but mostly 2 and 5 times better. Okay, when you're on. So it's not a cure, but it's a huge benefit. And the other thing that they haven't done the studies on yet is it's protective. Something happens, like the cells, you are less likely to suffer from the side effects of chemo or radiation on a keto diet.
Yeah, yeah.
I never lost my hair. So the keto diet was key, and I did that in that while I started in Germany. It's difficult to start.
Did you get support for that? Did you have someone guiding you?
No, that was me on YouTube.
Oh wow. Okay. Well, YouTube's got a lot of good stuff out there, as this video
Yeah,
will
it
be
was me
soon,
like
so,
on YouTube
yeah.
and doing studies, reading the studies, like.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I'm and the studies and the study, but like I'm big onto I like evidential stuff. I like to see
Yeah,
stuff
yeah.
that works.
Yeah, while we're on that, I'm gonna call up the study on I'm still learning how to navigate my computer, but the study on diflunisal, it's a very good study. So a lot of people, and it's not a very popular one in this world. It's kind of very niche because it's kind of only done really with Dr. Drevs.
Okay.
It's a published study. It's very interesting. Yeah, he claims 11% complete response and 53% partial response. So, they are big numbers for an experimental treatment without significant side effects. So it's not like I don't know whether you had side effects on the treatment, but for me it was a walk in the park, a bit of gastro issues, but
I didn't even have the gastro issues.
okay. I had
I had a pain in my arm where the needle was going in. It kind of
yeah, you didn't have a port,
right?
right?
Like that's very minor.
It's a very good that's a very good point. It's much better through a port. Yeah, you get some burning, right, if it's into the arm. Yeah.
It's much better through a what?
A port.
Port.
Yeah.
Right, okay. Yeah, I didn't have a port.
Yeah.
I had this thing in my arm and an ice pack over it. That was how they did it back then. I don't know how to do it now, but yeah, that was the only thing. And it was
and you did 3 weeks, is that right?
I actually did 4.
Oh, four. And then did you get the
I asked for
personalized
an extra week.
Okay. And did you get the personalized cancer vaccine as well? Did he apply for he did as well, yeah. So he did which is the RGCC tumor associated antigens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I found that was kind of a silver bullet.
Yeah.
I find that was the point. I don't know if it was just that it was happening anyway, because I was doing. I just like to preface that, like everything I say, preface is probably the wrong word. I'm a little bit like the woman that sat in the pincushion. Like, I'm not sure which one pricked her. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, that's common.
I did the mushrooms. I did the fusional. I did the what did you call it? The vaccine, the
personalized cancer vaccine. Yeah.
Personalized cancer vaccine. I did the keto diet. but it was like when I got the first shot of the vaccine, when it came back and I got the first shot, it was it knocked you out your immune system for a day or two. When I bounced back from that, I thought, I don't know, I just had the feeling, hold on, we have this thing on the back foot, kind of.
Mm.
I felt that was a silver bullet or something. Yeah, I felt good. I felt that in myself there was a
Oh,
shift
okay, wow. You felt good.
on
Yeah,
that.
I did Willie. I
So,
did 3 of those. I did personalized cancer vaccine with Drevs as well, and 2 with Dr. Kenny in Malaysia. So something, and I see
right,
a lot of talk a lot about vaccines, and like
yeah.
and the trials are great on that as well. And then what sort of cost, just for people are aware. So I think it was about 7 or 8 thousand a week for the diflunisal from memory, or 5,000 a week. I remember something around that, and about 20,000 for the vaccine. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, it is. I I think the vaccine was 20 grand.
Yeah.
I remember that. The other stuff, I was in quite a lucky position in that, like, I took the approach because I had like a GoFundMe. I'm like, and I tell this to people. I said, like, sometimes you meet a couple, and I would be like, so your job is to not die, and your job is to do everything else, and let him or her focus on that.
Yeah, yeah.
And I kind of did that, and that also, like support is a huge thing.
Yeah.
Like, I just got to focus on keto diet and exercise oncology, like some vigorous exercise, and I was incapable of it at the time.
Okay, so you were not really working out at the start. You were a week, and you forced
Yeah,
yourself to get fit. Yeah.
well, you're right. I used to jog 100 yards,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I had to walk back. And like it definitely, I noticed it with that around that time after the vaccine, after the first vaccine, when I bounced back. Yeah, that I could tell. But there was a couple of things, um like the keto. There's things that the medical industry, the medical profession is full of people who want to save lives, and they're top class, and they have a vocation. The medical industry is based on profit, and their responsibility is to provide a dividend for their shareholders,
Yeah.
right? And it's naive to think, and they're not bad or
Yeah.
good. That's their job. It's like the construction industry or the tourism industry or the
Exactly
textile.
that. Exactly that.
That's
People
what they
blame
do. That's how
pharma,
that
but
works.
yes, the system works like that. And it's
Yeah.
if it's
So
going to change, it's for patients or people to change it. It's that's how it
yeah, well,
works. And
it's back to taking responsibility for your
yeah,
own
yeah,
recovery.
yeah,
But
yeah.
there is a huge amount of things that aspirin, if you've ever had cancer, taking 100 milligrams of aspirin every day, which is like a third of a dispirin, gives you 70% less chance of recurrence.
Yeah,
That's published multiple times. It was in the Guardian.
yeah,
Um, and it's salicylic acid. But
yeah,
I could make salicylic acid. There's no licensing for it. There's no profit in promoting that, so it's not promoted.
yeah, yeah.
There's no profit in, like, fasting. I did a couple of 4-day fasts.
Oh, you did fasting as well. Wow, wow,
Yeah,
interesting.
so the
Okay, yeah,
autophagy, like, 100% works
yeah,
on reducing tumors. There's no profit in telling someone don't eat for 4 days.
yeah, yeah,
There's
yeah,
no profit in telling someone don't eat chips and
yeah,
bread.
yeah, yeah. Of
You know what
course,
I
yeah.
mean? There's no exercise oncology. 100% works killing circulating cancer cells. There's no money in telling people that.
Yeah,
So
it's a
those
very
things just,
important point, because the majority, particularly if they haven't had a friend or family member who've been through it, they struggle to comprehend why their oncologist is not doing everything to save their life. They really
yeah,
they really can't, like, what do you mean my oncologist is not saving me? Even if they go to the top cancer hospitals, there's some pretty rich people, and they just go from top hospital to top hospital, all getting the same advice from different doctors,
yeah,
and they spend a fortune. So
yeah. Can I just, sorry, can I pause just 1 second? Give
yeah,
me
no
two
worries,
seconds.
no worries.
Just I'm on a Zoom call, Fabio. apologies. So this is a farm. I run the business out of the house, and sometimes
Yeah,
just
no
people
worries, no worries.
call.
I'm from an Irish farming family myself, so
Oh yeah.
yeah, yeah,
So we're anyway. We'll get into that another time.
yeah.
Um, so I went into remission. Came back, and I was on the keto diet. I'd done a couple of days of fasting. I was doing like exercise oncology. I was also um, and I went into remission. Went back in November, I think, for the
And
scans.
this was on, just to clear, this was on diflunisal with aspirin and the cancer vaccine and the oral capecitabine, right? Was he gave you the oral chemo for a period of
Yeah.
how many months?
Up. So I got to him in July, and I'd say I stopped that in November.
Okay, so for a few months, yeah.
Yeah. So I went, so it was like you're going to die, and then you're not going to die, or at least
Yeah,
you're not
yeah.
going to die away.
And at this point, you've not done any standard medicine, right? You've just gone to Drevs, done what he's
Yeah.
done, and the cancer's disappeared, right? Wow, it's
No, it didn't disappear. It went into remission.
or in remission.
I
Yeah,
was
yeah. It's a
on
good
some
point. It's a
chemo,
good.
like there was standard, like there was an oral chemo, and it was like, woo. And I didn't know, like, I assumed it was what I was doing with Drev was, it was the diffusional. And I came off the chemo. I stopped doing the keto, and like there was a huge stress factor. You're going to die, you're not going to die. And I let down. I started, I had a big Christmas dinner. I had a few pints of Guinness. It was great. Like there was a kind of the stress was off. Like I put down the gun and I was
Yeah,
like, the
yeah, yeah,
stress
yeah.
was off. And then I was feeling bad at Christmas. I was getting headaches. I was, I had been actually I thought I had COVID. I was taking care of an elderly parent who was dying, and so I just thought it was stress.
Yeah, and that's stressful. That's incredibly stressful, no? Yeah, it's
Yeah,
yeah,
it
yeah,
is, and people like the nurses used to come in, and like I had to do like showers and
yeah,
bring them to
yeah.
the toilet and stuff like that, and the nurses and they just have skills, like they can do so. I was terrible at it, and I found it difficult, and so I thought it was just stress. My father sadly died, and then, but at the funeral, my cousin, who is an oncologist, was like, "When have you been back for scans?" She was looking at me, and I looked quite gaunt, and sent me up to the Mater in Dublin, and he just like looked at me and just put his hand up like kind of like that, almost in front of my face, said, "Go get a scan and come back to me." And so I had 15 brain tumors, uh, one of them an inch in diameter. Stuff in the lungs was back and bigger, and new stuff in the stomach. And they weren't giving. He didn't let me out of the hospital for 4 days, and like I hadn't planned to stay. And they were like, "Okay, so we'll treat you with radiation. We can target certain areas." But it was like there was no hope. They were giving me about 4 months without treatment, and with the radiation, they could prolong it. And I went up for a fitting. You get like this mask. You're like the guy, the gimp out of Pulp Fiction. Um, and they kind of mark out the mask according to where the tumors are. And I was starting, and Drev had contacted, again, a little bit hazy because I had 15 brain tumors
Yeah, yeah.
at the time. There was a meeting or correspondence between Drev and my oncologist, and I was going for start the radiation the following day on the Tuesday, and I got a phone call on the Monday night don't go, we're doing. And Drev had found something in a biopsy that had been done originally in Limerick here. It was a protein, and if I had this protein, I could use this medicine, Alectinib.
Oh, so it was Drevs who found this targeted therapy for you.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Wow. Okay. Wow.
He had said it originally so like, if that doesn't work,
Yeah.
when I took on my first treatment, we have this as a second thing. And we have that. So I then, so the company, they said, look, you can't do both.
Mm.
You can do the radiation or this. There was no precedent on it passing the blood-brain barrier. It had worked on lung cancer previously. So if it works, like it'll take 8 weeks to figure out whether it'll work. If it doesn't work, you won't be worth treating in 8 weeks, kind of. You know what I mean? So, like, it was spin the bottle because the other one wasn't a winner anyway. So I said, yeah, run it, definitely. We'll go for it. I got serious about back on the keto. And in those 2 months, I did 2 4-day fasts. So just to explain the fast, you go into autophagy after 24 to 36 hours, and your body starts eating like the fat around your belly, visceral fat, dead cells like senescence,
anything
eating non-essential stuff.
Yeah, and what sort of fasting were you doing? Just with water or
I used to have coffee as well, black coffee.
Coffee and no other magnesium or
electrolytes.
Electrolytes.
Not promoting, but I use Element. It's,
okay.
really good.
Yeah.
So I did 2 4-day fasts. I was complete keto all the time, and so I did that, and also it was like the fact that I was doing something. I was just sitting at home waiting for results. That's a factor as well, I believe.
Yeah. It's funny. I work with experimental clinics, and I think there's value sometimes in some families, don't recommend it for all. If you're financially in a position to do it, just trying stuff that may work. It might go from like the 1 in 4 to the 1 in 10 to the 1 in 100. But just having that thin slice of hope and when you're sitting there waiting to die is not a fun experience.
I would say agency,
the
feeling of agency, having been in, like I have an input here, and the fact is you have the biggest input, more than an oncologist, more than anything else. Like totally. It's really down to you. So went back 2 months, 8 weeks. Went back, large tumors, 50% reduced, small tumors, gone. And it was like, brilliant. And I said, I'd done this keto and I'd done these 4-day fasts. And I said, no, the medicine either works or doesn't work. It was either going to pass the blood-brain barrier or not. And I was like, whoo, 2 boxes of Krispy Kremes on the way home. One for me to eat on the way home and one for me to give the kids when I got home. And so it was just brilliant. It was like, again, you're going to die, you're not going to die. And like there's an emotional roller coaster that goes with that thing. And it was just great. Just medicine worked. Went back in July. It was July when I got the results anyway, and they said there was some slight changes in the slight improvement in the brain tumors, no real changes anywhere else. And she gave me this feel like that this medicine works, for a long time for some people, but it stops working average, about 2 years. But some people it stops working quite quickly. And this looked like, that, but there was a slight change, so they'd give it another 90 days. But then they could start me on a program of radiation. And again, long, slow death is kind of what they're all prescribing here. And I was like, that was probably the toughest one. That was like, because you only have so much fight in you, or at least, I felt like I was very close to throwing in the towel at that stage. And I'd say if I did, I'd have died. And actually, I kind of did throw in the towel. I was like, what am I going to do here? This thing isn't going away. There was and yeah, I was like, that was very cold. That was a tough time. That was very dark. And maybe it's time to face up to reality. And like there was I had a lot of conversations with myself in the mirror. And the other thing is, like, if I'm going to die, you want to do that right as well.
Yeah.
And you want to pay attention, like, maybe it's time to be. And I had signed up for this Vipassana retreat, and it was a 10-day silent retreat. It's the kind of thing that you can't actually pay for it or book it. You apply and they accept you, or they don't. And you go and you live there and eat their food for 10 days. And at the end, you contribute whatever you can, or whatever you think was worth. So, like, it's a different vibe. There's no complaining about the food or anything like that.
Yeah,
There's no talking anyway. So it's like 10 days standard, and they kind of give you there's a discourse, like, which is basically a video of kind of teaching you a technique to do that day and to add, and it builds over 4 or 5 days. And then you become like, I had done stuff on YouTube. I'd always kind of been into the meditation thing. But like, it's next level kind of stuff. And it's very difficult. A lot of people don't make the 10 days.
Yeah.
And it's like, the only person you meet in there is yourself.
Yeah.
Like, there's no eye contact, there's no talking, there's no writing, no phones, nothing. It's really good. And your food is provided for you. There's meals, set times, bell goes. You don't have to think about anything except, the meditation. And I did that. And like, sometime about day 5 or 6, it was like, it's going to be okay. It wasn't like you're not going to die or anything like that. It's just, it's going to be okay. And I came out of there, and I went back on the keto. But my mind changed, was probably the big thing. I went back on the keto. I can't remember if I did any fasting. To be honest, I just can't remember. I'd say I did. And in October, I was in October when I got the results. I think I got the scan in the end of September. Brain tumors were gone. Stuff in the lung greatly reduced. And that was kind of it. Then I felt, okay, right. So there's like, what I do has a serious effect on this, no matter what anyone says. And that was when I felt I owned it a little bit.
That is key, actually. It's interesting. I mean, partly because of your story. Actually, no, it wasn't your story. It's a very interesting series of steps, that kind of why I'm so interested in this meditation stuff. I did a podcast, and a guy on the podcast said, Mark, you wouldn't believe it, I did a Vipassana and my PSA declined, the tumor marker for prostate. I'm like, oh, very interesting. So I did a search on YouTube and found a lady who cleared ovarian cancer twice, stage 2 and stage 4. And then your story as well on obviously with meditation.
Yeah, like it was 100% change in the dynamic in my health. Going around saying meditation cures cancer, like, it's kind of dangerous. But
yeah, no, I would caveat that and say,
you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I think what I would say is, stress causes cancer, and then having cancer causes stress.
Yeah.
And stress causes cancer, and having cancer causes stress. And like, breaking that cycle is key. And Thomas Cook, who got a knighthood for taking the handle off the pump and stemming the Black Plague. And his thing was, stop doing what's causing it is the best medicine. Like, so taking responsibility for your own recovery is, well, whatever I was doing up until my diagnosis, you take responsibility for that too.
Yeah.
Take responsibility for having cancer. All right.
Yeah.
Don't be a victim.
Yeah. Very true. And I think
No,
on that one,
there's
it's
no
kind of
profit in
very,
victimhood now.
yeah, it's
Victim
very
is bad.
interesting because I delve into things on this topic. I mean, I'm gonna bring it up another study on this topic about does meditation cure cancer? I'm definitely not going to walk around and say that, but it's a
Yeah.
very interesting topic, and it's where I'm actually considering becoming a meditation teacher because there was this study with transcendental meditation, and it was a very small study. It halved the breast cancer deaths.
Yeah.
The full studies here.
Yeah. The
But
problem.
I think going on to your topic a bit more, it's you'll often see the stress causing, leading to a cancer diagnosis, and that's now been documented, this chronic stress. And I think meditation is a very strong way of dealing with that chronic stress.
Yeah. I think I think it's huge. I think it's important. I think it was key in my survival. And like the kind of trouble is that studies are done mostly it takes an awful lot of money to do a study on anything, proper scientific placebo-controlled study, and they're generally done by pharmaceutical companies. And people it's very difficult to find the money to do a study that there isn't any profit out of the result.
Yeah.
And again, there's no profit in telling people don't eat anything for 4 days. There's no profit in telling people don't talk for 10 days or like do meditation. There's no profit. So if there's no profit as a result of the study, it's very hard to get funding for it.
Yeah. I mean, there is a lot of studies out there, like the meditation one. They're hidden, and then your oncologist is not going to tell you about it. So the medical system, which requires a phase 3 study, which costs hundreds of millions to run, is not going to share this information with people. So I think it's on our responsibility as a patient network or the public to inform people.
Yeah. So that was kind of it. Like the keto certainly seemed to work for me. The meditation certainly seemed to be a turning point. When I wasn't on keto, I didn't do well. Stress and support were a big thing, like removing other stresses. Like handling, whether it was more like handling, kind of taking the stress out of the situation and just able to focus on your recovery and having support. Like I had great support.
Yeah, you're very lucky. A lot many people get that. Yeah.
And like there's a whole like support to supporters. Like difficult to support someone who's sick.
Yeah, some people walk away. There's a phenomenon of ghosting.
I had all of that.
It's too much.
People can't handle it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, to be honest, I had a friend who got leukemia, passed away. 2 friends actually in the same year, and I wasn't emotionally mature enough at the time to know what to say, and it was too overwhelming. Yeah, and a lot of people are in that situation.
Avoid the situation, like they don't know what to say.
Yeah,
and it brings up their own mortality, and like people go around thinking they're just going to grow old and live forever, and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Going to sometime in the future.
Yeah,
it's actually here now. Like that rattles people. Rattled me. Yeah. So I guess to sum up, I think like the key thing is taking responsibility for having cancer.
Yeah.
It wasn't something that happened to me. I wasn't a victim. Like whatever my life was prior to that, whatever it was, it's not a blame thing,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
but like it was a cause and effect. Like whatever I was doing prior to that, that's I end up with that.
Yeah.
And there was an emotional thing with it. Like there was lots of stress and um emotions, or I wasn't, I wasn't probably well or dealing with things in life quite well and repressing a lot of stuff and
Yeah.
blah blah
Yeah.
blah. Anyway, I'm not saying that. So that's the first thing. Take responsibility for your illness, and then take responsibility for your recovery.
Yeah.
And then Dr. Drev and the diffusional, the keto, the meditation, and the psilocybin like was probably key for me. Those were
Yeah.
key things
Yeah.
for me.
I see it a lot actually. I had a podcast interview with Nasha Winters, who's a big proponent, written books on keto. And she turned around a very late stage ovarian, stage 4. So late they weren't even going to give her any conventional medicine. And she attributes some of that to a 10 gram, first time 10 gram hero's dose.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of depth behind my thought structure, but I'm absolutely certain that if you were to plot if you were to run a clinical trial on people who did magic mushrooms in a controlled setting with a therapist who knows how to do it against those that didn't, I'm fairly sure those that did will get better results.
Yeah, I think there's like it's all anecdotal evidence at the moment,
Yeah,
but like I feel fairly confident that again, survivor's bias. So I'd love to
yeah,
do
yeah.
that. I don't have the money to back up the study, but yeah, that would be my guess as well.
Yeah, I mean, but I
Uh,
follow a lot of patients, hundreds, and what I observe is why I'm doing these podcasts is the majority of people are very confused about what to do because they get so much opinion. They end up doing stuff without evidence, and it's a bit of amusing, really, because it's the easy things to advertise, like fenbendazole is one. It's a deworming thing. It's cheap to get. You don't even need a doctor's prescription because it's an animal product. And I've seen more cases of problems caused by it, causing hyperprogression, causing liver damage, than I have success stories. So a lot of people end up in this world of doing. I think what helped you also is the ability to read a study and navigate your own journey. A lot of people just take opinion from everyone,
yeah,
and then just they're blindly following everything that everyone's telling
I
them. And a lot
totally
of people
wouldn't be ready to
navigate
read the
by,
study. Yeah.
and I think it's a key differentiator. Some can't navigate for themselves. They have to navigate through opinion. And they just ask and ask, and they end up confused because they're getting 16 different opinions. And I think you were lucky in some degree, but I think your ability to navigate good and bad science was a key part of it as well.
Probably. Um, yeah, I guess I'm not great to read. I used to just read the abstract and the conclusion.
It's
I'm
more than
actually
it's
terrible
more
at
than
reading
most people.
studies.
They go on a Facebook group and
I don't, yeah,
like
yeah, but it was like, yeah, I had this like evidence-based would be what the words I put in before
yeah,
the search.
yeah, yeah. I actually
Scientific studies on, proven studies on, yeah. So my mother was a doctor, my father was a vet, so I was from that background. But I'm kind of dyslexic. I'm not a good reader. Like YouTube has changed my life and Audible
yeah,
and
yeah,
stuff. So that, but what really was, so uh, I believe it's Einstein said empirical evidence is empirical data is the only data or the best data.
yeah,
Like,
yes, yeah,
and I just the way things panned out, I saw, hold on, this is working. Like I felt this was working. I felt the psilocybin trip initially was massive, at least in changing my mental state.
yeah, yeah,
Um, I felt it when the vaccine, the cancer vaccine that I got in Germany, like I thought I felt a shift there.
mm,
I felt different when I was on keto. Results were good. When I wasn't on keto, results were bad. Like that was really clear. on scans.
Mm.
And I kind of did my my own study, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I
it was
mean,
an H1.
I'm just to plug my portal. So me and my partner, Gabrielle Gavazzi, we developed, we portal based on all the research. So it's got all the studies we could find, including diflunisal. And we have these guiding principles. And, like it's interesting hearing your story. These are things I've picked up that I find correlated with good success. And a lot of things you brought up are mimicked here. So like building a solid team, having that community, starting early, following the science, comprehend, you understood that standard of care wasn't going to be very good, and you came up with your own process. You managed the panic with magic mushrooms. Master innate healing. So the master innate healing is more about managing the mind, with psychedelics, meditation. So yeah, I think when hearing your story, I'm quite encouraged, I guess, from hearing all the things different things you did, because it's what we write about. It's more often than not what people don't end up doing that leads to the good success. The vast majority of people I come across, unfortunately, in my world, they enter this world and they're already on something without scientific evidence, because they've just bombarded themselves with a lot of noise that's out there in this world. And
Yeah.
you did some, but also difficult things, right? For a lot of people, magic mushrooms is too difficult to do. And likewise, a fast for 4 days is difficult for a lot of people, or a 10-day meditation retreat. These things require that fighting skills that you developed, I think.
I don't know, you get very disciplined when the gun is in your mouth. That's what I found.
Some
Like,
people do. Some people switch off. Some people,
yeah,
I get a lot of it. I guess it's kind of funny because I get the same excuses. I tell people about what I see in the data from meditation and that study, and then I hear common reasons why people are not doing it.
yeah,
It's very consistent.
yeah. Like I get a lot of phone calls from people, as I said, and you can tell at the beginning, very early in a phone call, this person, and you can tell them go to Germany and do keto, and these have worked, and they're like, I was always a good person, and I don't like they've signed out.
Yeah.
This thing has actually provided a convenient solution, especially men, especially middle-aged men. You get a woman with young kids and you wouldn't kill her with a Roundup. You know what I mean? She's going
Yeah.
to fight through.
Oh man, yeah, such a great story. I do coaching, group coaching, and so I bring a group of people on, and I had in my last session, I had about 9 people on it, and every single one was a woman, the majority with kids.
Yeah,
Not a single guy.
yeah,
The guys tend to just trust their oncologist in general. I mean, quite often you get this strange dynamic where the wife is trying to save the oncologist and saying, why don't you try meditation, mushrooms,
yeah.
diflunisal, and the guy's like saying, don't worry, I've got this white-coated guy to guide me.
But guys are, and I know it might differ culturally in different parts of the world, but guys are, men are less equipped to receive support.
Yeah, very true.
And they like results-based stuff. And the guy in the white coat and the clipboard, provides safety
Yeah.
in that
And I think even
situation.
emotionally, I think it's just easier,
Yeah.
just
No,
listen.
you
Yeah,
have to
okay,
face
yeah.
into like I think you hit on something there. Like I think recovery means, so the person, what I tell people is like a person who got cancer is going to die. Like, and a new person has to come out of this situation. A different
Amazing,
person is going to
amazing.
survive from cancer than the person who got cancer.
Exactly. Yeah. That's
And
a
that
brilliant.
involves an emotional change
Yeah.
at a very deep psychological level. however that gets achieved, it's not fun and not easy. Um, however that was essential for me anyway, I'd have to say. It is a life-changing experience, and if you don't change, it doesn't work.
Yeah, yeah, and people get hooked on their old life. It's been tough for my process as well. I mean, I meditate. I've done maybe 30 psychedelic journeys along my way, and uncovered a
Wow,
huge
really?
amount of trauma, a huge amount, like a very difficult birth, basically strangled by the umbilical cord, um, head crushed with forceps coming out of the my mum, and like
Right.
having to go through that on experiences. So, and yeah,
Yeah.
I
Okay.
feel like a different person. It's taken a long time to get used to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think I think that's key. I think like early trauma, childhood trauma, um, unless processing that was a key part of my recovery.
Oh, right. Oh, okay. Interesting. Yeah, yeah, that's and it's kind of interesting. On your meditation retreat, did any of that come up, or because sometimes the trauma comes up in the meditation retreats in some people, panic or depression or
Yeah, and I would say like the passion retreat is great, but yes, some it didn't. No, it not really.
okay.
Not be no, not really in the mid. Like I did. It came up eventually
Hmm.
after that,
Okay.
and kind of processed it. Um, and it took a year, a couple of years to go through the stuff, and it's an ongoing process
Yeah,
anyway.
yeah,
But
yeah.
um, no, I'd say stuff came up. Trauma did come up, but like it didn't resolve in that situation.
Hmm.
And meditating can bring up stuff that you're not ready to deal with or
Yeah.
capable of dealing with. So like going into the cave, like the treasure you seek is in the cave you're afraid to go into.
Yeah, yeah.
And going into the cave and going through that stuff, like don't do it on your own.
Yeah, yeah.
Get someone, get someone who knows what they're doing, trauma informed, and getting a therapist is like getting a friend or getting a wife or getting
Yeah.
a like. Not everyone that you want to be your friend or your wife, like just because they have the
Yeah, so true.
qualifications. Like you need to find someone
Yeah,
who
yeah.
you kind of click with,
Exactly. Yeah.
and if they've got to be your friend. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? There's got to be that kind of relationship for that to work. They've also got to know what they're doing, but like knowing what they're doing isn't enough. You need to have a connection with someone to go through that.
It's a good point. I mean, did you? I mean, I saw a lot of therapists. I made it part of my work, but I think I've got like this addictive personality where I was just intrigued by having so many, and I met some great people along the way. But did you
I've had
actually have
some
any?
terrible ones.
Oh, you had some terrible ones. Okay,
Yeah,
so
like you'd be re-traumatized like
yeah,
by
oh
them.
wow, yeah, I've heard about that from some people. Yeah, yeah. So, but did you have found someone you could trust and
Yeah,
yeah. And could they navigate other things? Could they like talk about meditation, psychedelic stuff like that, or were they more just giving?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, they did. And and I have spoken. Yeah, well, I wouldn't deal with someone who couldn't, if you know what I mean.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I wouldn't. Like, someone needs to be on the same vein as you.
It's a very good point because I think finding that person in the mental health space is not easy. That understands all the science, and a lot of people get stuck in their own cognitive behavioral therapy or
Yeah.
their own branch of
The
training.
problem with it is if you to a man with a hammer, every problem looks like a nail.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
But you go to a CBT, they think CBT is the solution
yeah,
for
yeah,
everything.
yeah,
You go to like EMDR, like I don't know if you've
yeah,
done
yeah,
that
yeah,
eye movement, that like they believe that's the solution to
yeah,
everything.
yeah.
And, so like it needs to be again, that's a journey where you have to take 100% responsibility.
Yeah.
and don't hand it over to any therapist. Like,
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
they're just someone to like
Use as a tool. Yeah.
to guide you. Yeah,
Yeah.
they're like a they're like a safety buddy. Like when you're
Yeah.
diving, you need that person, but you need that person there.
Yeah.
Do need that person there, but they're not in charge of your recovery.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
They're
hard.
just out there.
Yeah. It's an interesting, not actually weirdly, um, it's hard to find the person who covers everything, that can span all the modalities and has
Yeah,
experience and confidence. And, that is it's a new role, I think in the modern world, with meditation coming to light, with psychedelics coming to light, and all, EMDR, EMT, and tapping,
yeah,
the psyche stuff that we both did, and you gladly, very
yeah,
kindly paid for me. There's so many modalities out there. As actually getting someone who can help you navigate it all is I think a big need.
yeah, yeah. I think that's. I don't know if there's a one size fits all. Like people like, especially in a situation where they want to like do this and this
Yeah,
and
yeah,
that and
yeah.
get you there. And it might not exist actually, but so yeah, I guess there's a. But I guess I hate the word holistic or alternative, but like definitely what has happened for me is like I had to deal with stuff on an emotional or physical, um like I couldn't have done it without the medicine, without the oncologist, uh my diet, but I had to deal with an emotional or um like a deep psychological level.
Yeah.
Kind of everything had to change. Like the guy
Yeah,
who got
interesting. Yeah, similar
cancer
for
was
me. And
never
weirdly,
going to
you
be
you look you
able to
look different.
recover.
You look younger, weirdly. You're
Yeah,
reversing.
yeah, no, I'm not, and I'm not younger, I can't say. But my people say that.
Yeah.
They're like, what the fuck? Like, so there was also like I went on I'll tell you a funny story. I went on it was the second time they investigated the GoFundMe. Like KMPG, because when I went on the keto diet and I did all the stuff, I actually started to look a lot better. I lost a lot of weight, became fit. My skin was clear. The meditation is really good. You get a bit of a glow,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
women
yeah.
like. And I got investigated. Like they thought I was bluffing. I hadn't
You
told
don't
nothing at
look like a
all.
cancer patient. That's brilliant.
Yeah, I didn't look sick at all.
You're
Like I never lost
scamming
my
people.
hair.
It's probably a big business somewhere. It's probably a lot of people doing it, but
Well, there was a famous kind of case here in
yeah,
Ireland
yeah.
where like he was a sports personality, famous guy. I'm not going to name him, but and he went to jail. Like he had a GoFundMe and everyone put into it, and there was nothing wrong with him.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
He
yeah.
collected a bunch of money. So then there was like, then I immediately come under suspicion, and we had to the KMPG had to audit the GoFundMe.
Wow, wow, crazy, crazy. I mean, you did raise a
Yeah.
lot of money, so yeah, I can, amazing.
So
Yeah, nice
I
chatting. I
actually,
mean,
there's another hour
I
and
could rabbit on for hours and hours. Is there anything else you think that was relevant in the journey before we close out?
no, but I think we should do this again.
Okay, yeah, let's do it. Yeah.
Yeah, because it probably is, and we might have a chat. And yeah, yeah, I think we should do this again. There is lots of stuff, but I think we've probably covered most of it.
The big topics. Yeah,
We
I
can
wouldn't
might,
mind delving into. It's kind of interesting, that the trauma. This is at the fringes uh, of mind, body, and I guess oncology as well now. Increasingly, this what you talk about in terms of becoming a new self is kind of the process of awakening and enlightenment process that they talk about in the yogic worlds.
I know I
Um,
hate all those words, but they're probably true.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. It's going to trigger a lot of people, but it is a process,
yeah.
and not
Once
many
once
people.
people start saying like enlightenment and God and
Yeah,
spirituality, I'm out. I'm like out. But the
yeah.
fact is that like that kind of had to happen for me a
Yeah,
little bit.
yeah, yeah. No, and it is a process, and there's lots of YouTubes on it actually now, which has been useful for me because as I've gone through it, I mean, it's basically processing unprocessed trauma, right? It's like, and in that process, you become a different person. You feel different. Your behaviors change. Your friends change. I moved. I moved from the city, and I live on an island now. So it is becoming a totally new person. You have to get used to that new person.
And so does everybody else. Okay.
That's so
Listen,
true.
I'm going to wrap it up because I have something there, but I would like, we'll maybe have a chat later on. I've got
Yeah, sure. Yeah, loved it. And thanks so much, John. It's
yeah.
an amazing story. And yeah,
Thanks for
lovely
asking me to
chatting.
do it. Appreciate it. Okay.
Enjoy your day.
All the best.
See you
Bye.
soon. Bye.